my Area 51 line. You're on the air. Hello.
Welcome to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, where what you've known as reality will be shattered by the truth. Krista and Brandy will lift the veil from your eyes, revealing what has either been hidden or denied you for eons.
Hey, happy
Thursday. I was like, did you forget? It's Thursday.
About it a minute.
I know this week, let me just tell you, this week has been, it's been enough. It's been enough. And it's still not over. I got home from Emmaus Asylum, as we talked about last week on the show. And I got home on Sunday. Then I had to pack again. I had to leave for, I had to work all day. Then I had to leave for meetings. And then I was in meetings and classes all day Tuesday. Got home last night. Went to work today. And I'm packing again.
Yep.
And then I got to work all day tomorrow, and then we're going to, Krista, drum roll, say it, Krista.
Bigfoot, Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival.
Yes, Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival will be there this weekend. So if you're hanging out, you're around, or you're not, just come on. It's going to be fun. Just make sure you bring your rain gear. They're calling for a little bit of rain. So, we're going to be prepared.
They were calling for like 77% of storms, chance of storms and rain on Saturday. They took that out and now it's only down to like 33%. So
I'm still bringing my rain gear.
Oh yeah.
I'm bringing my mud boots and my rain jacket.
Heck yeah. So it's going to be a good time. Going to be a good trip and
maybe even my frog suit, just depending.
Right. There you go. So anyway, it's going to be a good time. So if anybody is, in and around Townsend, Tennessee, come on.
Yeah, just come on. And then, oh my gosh, what's coming up next weekend?
We have the ghost hunt at the Ray County Museum with Haunted
Souls.
We
got that next weekend. So
yeah, we have a lot going on, guys. And then we have, I think it's June 7th. We have Missouri State Penitentiary. We're doing the ghost hunt.
June 7th or the 12th?
It's the 7th.
I'm hoping it's the 7th. Yeah. Yeah.
What was that look about?
Oh, I'm just thinking, we got another investigation that we're doing in between all of that. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's every weekend, Randy. We're booked until June 7th.
I think so. And, it's great, but we're trying to get it all in before it gets too unbearably hot. We have to keep that in mind, because over the summertime, we're pretty much going to be laying dormant in the air conditioning. I'm just saying.
There you go. We also have a conference. Brandy, I'll let you do the honors.
Okay. As everybody should know, but if you don't, Crossing Realms Conference, September 19th and 20th of 2025 this year in Richmond, Missouri. That is not Virginia. It is Missouri, Richmond, Missouri, at the Eagleton Civic Center. As you can see, we have a whole lot of speakers lining up for this weekend, and we have a lot of special guests. We have even more special guests and more speakers that are not even on here. We are exploding, people. This is the conference to come to this year. If you want to be a vendor, by golly, we've got lots and lots of room. We've got a whole area outside that we are having all of our vendors in. We have plenty of space. I don't think we even have a cap on it yet, if we have any, to have vendors. But don't forget, we have a meet and greet on Friday night with a guest speaker, with somebody premiering one of their documentaries, with a popcorn and a few, sodas to drink. That'll be cool. And on Saturday, of course, we do have the whole day. We're doing our guest speakers. We're having we have guest attendees, but I'm calling them guest appearances by people where they're coming. They're just coming. It's going to be great. And we also have a psychic gallery with Mary Lynn Bast from Para with the Norm. So she is going to be there. All information is on Eventbrite under Crossing Realms Conference. So just go there, look under that. It'll have everything, including vendor information. So don't wait, because we do have a cap on the speaker presentations. So make sure you get your tickets early for that at least. Okay, I'm done.
And
I'm
then
done.
we added Donny Hauser, and we added D.A. Weissong. And then I heard last night or this morning, I woke up to a message and I was chatting with him today, Daniel Becker. So we'll be flying in from Alaska. So that'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, see what I'm saying? Guest appearances. They're just coming. They're just coming, everybody.
Yep.
Like I said, this is going to be the event of the year, because everybody is just coming. I mean, there is so much love in this community, and we're just seeing it come together, and we're really appreciative of just everyone, just really everyone.
Absolutely, we are. Well, we have an exciting show tonight, and I'm been excited about this. Our guest, he came on a Bigfoot Michigan Rob show on Beyond BMR, and I met him through there, and I've been watching their stuff for years, and they put out good material. They're good researchers, and yeah, I'll just wait no further. It looks like he's ready backstage. Mr. Shane Corson, how are you?
Welcome, Shane.
Thank you, Brandy and Krista. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, I've been following you guys for quite some time, and you guys have some phenomenal evidence.
I know, you're talking about one of our favorite subjects. What are you going to
do? Yeah, we've been at it for a while, and I think we've accumulated some stuff over the years that's compelling and interesting, at least to me.
Yeah, me too. That's why you're on the show. If you don't believe in Bigfoot and you see a lot of their evidence that they get and the places they go to, like I don't even know what to tell you then.
Yeah, we get out there. We try to do our due diligence, and we have fun at it.
Yep, I can tell. Absolutely. How did you get started with this whole Bigfoot phenomena?
Yeah, so I was born in Paisley, Glasgow in Scotland. I lived on a little island off the west coast of Scotland called Islay. And my mom actually introduced me into paleontology and cryptozoology, and that kind of lit a spark under my rear. And I used to just read everything I could, you know, on a little island, really small island. It's known for its whiskey. And so on this island, there was fossils on the island, and I used to write back, before social media and cell phones and all that. I used to write paleontologists letters, asking questions, stuff, and they would write me letters back from Edinburgh on the mainland Scotland. And so paleontology, dinosaurs was my first love, but I was fascinated with Loch Ness, and all the cryptids around the world. But Bigfoot always had a special thing for me. And my mom's American, my dad's Scottish. And so in 93, we moved to the States. We moved to Eastern San Diego. And I was very happy because I figured I was in the land of the Sasquatch. And that's kind of what got me into it. And in 97, I got my wheels. I could drive around, and I started venturing around Southern California and up to Yosemite, which I spent a lot of time up in Yosemite, hiking the backcountry, exploring, and just investigating, talking to witnesses and whatnot. And so, yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. Obviously TV shows and books and everything I get my hands on, even in Scotland when I came to the States. So there was a lot more information out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's honestly, you think back, back in the Patterson-Gimlin days, or, we're Missouri, we had the Momo monster scare back in the mid 70s, and then you got Boggy Creek, and back then, it was the TV shows, and it scared a lot of people, and it was a big, I think, phenomena then. But however, like anything you want to know about it today, you got it. I think like back in those times, it was kind of a taboo thing, to talk about, and not anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nowadays you have everything at your fingertips, growing up, I'll be 46 this year, but growing up, I didn't have this sort of stuff at my fingertips. Books not really a library, no internet, as far as looking stuff up. It was TV shows and books, and
Right.
that got me heavily interested in it, knowing that there's mystery out there. And lo and behold, I didn't know I'd land in California and get to know and work with the people that I used to watch and look up to, and now call friends and peers. And it's been an amazing adventure, an amazing trip. And so, yeah, we're very blessed nowadays, and cursed in a lot of ways with how much,
right.
how much information is at our fingertips, because a lot of it is absolute junk, unfortunately.
You are absolutely right there. I guess growing up, for us, it was more or less, we were hearing the stories and things like that, and Chris and I, we always were interested, but just never took that final step, and it just till a few years ago, and it has been quite exciting, very exciting. I think we've been missing out.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well, better to get in it now than never, that's the way I look at it. And there's a lot of interest nowadays.
Sure.
Because of social media and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I started out the way I did, because I didn't have any of that stuff. And my interest came from the grassroots, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So over in Scotland, you said that your mom got you into, the cryptozoology and things like that. Is there Bigfoot over there as well, and that kind of thing, or?
Well, they have what they call the gray man over there. And I didn't spend a whole lot of time in mainland Scotland, but I got relatives spread out through Ireland, England, and Scotland. And one of my uncles, he's an avid hiker, historian. He's hiked the highest peaks like Ben Nevis over in Scotland. He's never come across anything. Honestly, you hear stuff. I find it very hard to believe that there would be any Sasquatch there. There's rumors of big cats over there, which is more believable to me for a lot of reasons, whether their exotic pets have been released or remnants of what the Romans left there when they brought a lot of animals to Britain, the UK in general. That's way more believable. But for a Sasquatch to survive and thrive there, I find it very hard to believe, knowing many individuals that are out there all the time. And we do have force. We actually have more force over than people believe. When the Romans came through and whatnot, they built and destroyed a lot of the forest there. It's not a lot of cover. We do have a lot of food sources that are very similar to the States, including red stag deer and blackberries and all that. But I find it very hard to believe that there's a Sasquatch population surviving and thriving there. But there's other things that quite possibly are really going on there. So I keep an open mind.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to doing this, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. How did you get hooked up with the Olympic Project?
Yeah, so I around 2011, till end of 2011, I had met Cliff Barrickman, and we became kind of friendly. Went to some of his speaking engagements while he was working with Finding Bigfoot. Partook in a few of those shows, and then I met Derek Randalls at an event down in Portland, Oregon. Guy Edwards he was an individual that used to put on these monthly speaking symposiums at the Lucky Labrador in downtown Portland, and we'd go there, and there'd be guest speakers and enthusiasts and researchers, and they all show up and collaborate. And Derek Randalls was doing a presentation down there, and got to talking with him, and he invited me up to one of their, at that time, public expeditions. And when I went on it, I was absolutely enthused with the approach of how they went, the Olymp Project at that time went about researching and the data collection and the places they would go. And so after that first expedition, Derek Randalls, co-founder of the Olymp Project, and I hit it off big time. And he asked me to join the Olymp Project, and been running full steam since, basically 2012. Wow.
That's fantastic. I mean, you guys been doing this a long time,
Yeah.
And that's, it definitely shows what all you guys do. How often do you get out in the woods?
I just got back a little bit earlier. I'm out daily, if not, 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes 4 or 5 days. It just depends. I mean, I kind of live in the woods, and then some of our core research areas, I'm out there frequently. So more times than not, put it that way. I'm always out in the woods. Yeah. A lot.
So do you believe, like, I know you guys have certain, as you said, the core research areas that, that you frequent. Do you believe that over time, like you guys always go back there, like that these Sasquatch, they get to know you and like maybe, trust you a little bit, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a couple of core areas, and I think that's very important that we don't really ambulance chase. I mean, that was the old days, and there's a place and a time for that for certain individuals. We stick to core areas where we get to study that area over years and years and years, so we can know the terrain, we can know the fauna, the plants, everything, and get very familiarized with those areas, so that when something obscure or suspect happens, it sticks out like a sore thumb. But as far as the Sasquatch, I don't think they're migratory. I think they're more transitory. They go from elevation to elevation, like a lot of the elk do out here and a lot of the other animals, based on the weather patterns and food sources. So we can move in this area, and maybe there's Sasquatch in there, maybe there's not. I'd be dumbfounded if they're as intelligent as I think they are, that they would not recognize us. And as humans, we're fairly predictable, so they would have to pick up on that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident if there's Sasquatch in this area, like I believe that they probably recognize us, but they're not always around. I mean, we're talking about a vast area and looking for a moving needle in a haystack. I mean, I'm an avid hunter, and the elk move around quite. You look for a sign, but the elk may not be there, but they were there. And I think it's the same thing with the Sasquatch. So, but yeah, I would be dumbfounded if they didn't, with the amount of times we're out in these areas, when it recognizes us.
I also think, we've talked about this on other shows. What do you think? Like, I mean, you go there all the time, if you have an encounter, you're not, shooting your guns and this type of thing, and I think intentions mean a lot. And I think that they can, like read that, because, like if somebody walks in a room, I'm talking a human or something, sometimes, you just get that feeling whether you like that person or not. And I feel like maybe they have the same type of, ability, I guess. And maybe they see that with you all, Yeah.
I mean, as much as we're in these areas, we're not frequently in some of these areas. We go in there, we replace some audio units and SD cards and batteries. We try to, when we're in there, but when we're not, we're just trying to be non-intrusive and let it be and see what the audio picks up. But with animals, I mean, even with known animals, like as a hunter, you come across an elk or deer, mountain lion or bear, they can pick up on your intentions. So again, I would be shocked if Sasquatch couldn't. Think about people in general. You get a certain look, you get a certain vibe, and that person's up to something nefarious, and they don't have good intentions. So yeah, absolutely. I again would be kind of floored if Sasquatch didn't have that capability. I hunt black-tailed deer up here, and they can pretty much, they know the hunting seasons, just like the elk do up here. They disappear. So Sasquatch, and just like humans, are I think more than capable of reading people's intentions and their motives and what they're up to. Definitely.
Most definitely. Let's fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about, which I have been fascinated with, is the nesting sites. Yeah.
So in 2015, a timber surveyor was out in the Olympics on some private timberland, and he's been doing this for up at that time 27 years, doing the same thing, going out and marking potential timber cuts, marking areas that were going to be potentially logged. Proximity to a river, you have to stay so far away. And he was out in this particular area, and he came across some really large ground nests, something he'd never seen before in his 27 years. He's seen it all, been there, done that. And he was kind of shocked and a little bit, not dismayed, but it bothered him. He'd never seen anything like this, and they looked kind of fresh. And so he actually backtracked out of there and got a hold of his boss and a couple of DNR guys, Department of Natural Resources, and then eventually got a hold of Derek Randalls, like I said, co-founder of the Olymp Project, because Derek, 10 years prior, had done some landscaping work for him. Derek Randalls owns a landscaping company, and so he knew that Derek was, into Sasquatch. He's seen him on programs, but also that Derek was an avid hunter, guide, and explorer. And so he invited Derek out there along with the timber company owner and a couple of Department of Natural Resources, DNR guys. And they all went out to this area. And originally, this timber surveyor had found a couple of nests. When they went back out there, they discovered like 7 more. And they were all floored. Nobody had an explanation for it. This was not bear behavior. This wasn't known animal behavior. And the owner of the property was interested in Sasquatch, and his brother, who's I believe works for the company, had an encounter many years ago in a different area while hunting elk. And so he said, "Hey, we're in no hurry to come out here and log this area. We'll give you guys keys to the gates, and go out there and do your research, whatever you have to do, and see if we can figure out what's going on." And so we've been doing that since 2015. And over the span of 2015, moving forward a couple of months, we found 23 nests. And so we kept exploring. And in 2020, we found a new nest. My partner, Todd Hale of the Olymp Project, and I found a new nest while it was being constructed. We just didn't get eyes on what was making it. But so, the nests, they're absolutely fascinating. We brought anthropologists out there, zookeepers. Dr. Jeff Meldrum's been out there, and everybody comes away floored. Now, nowadays, the nests are not really visible. It's been many years, even the one we found in 2020, because we took a lot of samples from that. So they go out there now, you wouldn't see nests. They're just, nature's taken over. There's been tree falls, snow, rain, animals moving through there. But originally, when we brought some of these individuals out there from across the country, they had no explanation other than this is very strange. This is not known North American animal or anywhere animal behavior, but it closely resembled what gorillas do as far as construction of the nests and the bedding material and all that. So a lot of similarities with known primates, and then a lot of dissimilarities as well. So it's been a fascinating thing. And, the nests aside, which were made predominantly, all out of huckleberry, which is evergreen huckleberry up here. It's pretty prevalent up in these areas, made strictly out of huckleberry, in size from about 3 to 4 feet across to over 8 to 9 feet across, bathtub shaped, foot in depth, with a heavy impression in the middle where something's been laying down. Some of the huckleberry boughs were, clipped or snapped off from over, 9 feet off the ground to a foot off the ground, and transported in some cases over 30 to 40 feet away to construct these ground nests. So it's, and of course we found hand impressions and foot impressions and the hair alone, which under a microscope is some sort of primate hair. It's not human hair. It's not bear hair. It's not elk hair. None of these, there was no sign of bear in this area with claw marks or teeth marks or even scat. It's been we were talking earlier about me living in Oregon. I did live in Oregon, and I moved up to Washington because of these nests.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my internet. Like, I was here and then I was gone. So
I
apologize.
I don't know where you went. I was like, where did she go? But we'll just keep talking. It's okay.
It won't happen again.
Right. But during this whole thing, it was kind of making me laugh because, Shane, as you were talking, my whole chat went completely silent. And I'm looking on both of my screens. And I'm like, what's happening? Because usually everybody's all bubbly and they're talking, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, did my chat stop, or is just everybody being quiet? Well, then they started all piping up. Or no, we're listening. And I was like, that's a first, because normally, there's always somebody, saying something or talking or asking a question, and it just went totally silent. That's a first for Blondes and Booze, I have to say.
Well, as long as no one's knocking on my door in 10 minutes telling me to get off the air and we're being silenced, and I'm good to go. We'll just call it weird.
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm like, wow, what happened? it just went silent. And I'm thinking, okay, something's happening with my internet is what I thought, but everybody was just listening because as soon as I asked the question, everybody started popping in. So that's pretty good. Okay, so maybe I missed it, but when was the last time you found a nest?
February of 2020, and that's interesting because we're of the opinion, and our running hypothesis is that these nests are being made in the tail end of February to March, and every 4 to 6 years. They're not made all the time. We are of the opinion, and based on a lot of different things, that these nests are being made around that time frame for a season and a reason, and quite possibly a birthing scenario, because at that time of year, we have a lot of salmon coming up these seasonal creeks. There's still berries out. There's a lot of food. And just based on the size of the nest, and I mean, wow, I can go into this quite deep. So the 14-inch tracks that we've been finding in these areas, including the new nest area that we found in 2020, going on with our hypothesis, these nests are being made on western-facing slopes between February and March. And the 14-inch tracks are very interesting because Patty, the Patterson-Gimlin film, which I believe is a Sasquatch that was filmed by Roger and Bob on October 20th, 1967. Patty, the cast A track, were a size 14. What a lot of people don't know. So, I mean, that sounds interesting, right? You're finding, 14-inch tracks. How would you assume that was a female? Blah, blah, blah. Well, in 1967, there was a timber employee by the name of Lyle Laverty who, in 1967, found a nest above Scorpion Creek, which feeds into Bluff Creek, a stone's throw away from where Roger and Bob filmed their film. And there was a nest found there. And then you have Patty, which is obviously a female, and she's a size 14. So you have a lot of correlation. These nests we're working on, we've not seen a Sasquatch. Well, there has been some sightings in this area. I've yet to see it, but we have size 14. We have nests. And so we're if Patty was giving birth or had given birth and that nest was to be associated with her, what was the reason? Why don't we find more nests? And they're usually always found by somebody in a timber company. And I've looked at this historically because before the nests were ever brought to my attention, I knew nothing about, never even thought about Sasquatch making nests. And I did a lot of research on this, and there's been nests found in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Alaska, British Columbia, Montana. And they're almost always found by timber company employees that have a job to do, which is get off trail and the nasty stuff, mark timber lines, potential timber cuts. And that's who finds these. And then you have this correlation with Patty. And then we have these nests here. We have traversed this area extensively over the years. And the only time we found nests a second time was in 2020, other than after 2015, exploring that whole ridge line, we came across 23, which 2 of those nests, so I should say 21 of those nests were ground nests. 2 of them in 2 different areas were actually a couple of feet off the ground, built into the huckleberry. They looked like practice nests. They would not hold any weight, but they were a couple of feet built up into the huckleberry, but a mirror image of what was on the ground. And again, Derek Randalls had done some research on this in the early days and discovered that that's kind of how gorillas teach their young to build nests, is a practice nest. And so maybe there's something to that, maybe not, but I count those 2 as nests. They're not bird nests. And they were made all at the same, roughly the same time frame with huckleberry. And so there's a lot of correlation, and it's just very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I apologize. My internet keeps leaving me, so I called Paranormal Paul to the rescue just in case.
Just in case.
Hi, Shane. How you doing?
I'm here
Hey,
for.
Paul.
I've been looking forward to this show, so this is about to pull my hair.
I mean, as we go along, I have more and more questions. Now, when you found those hair samples, were you lucky enough to get anything with DNA?
No, so at that time, so we believe, so when the nests were discovered, they were discovered in May. We believe they were being made in the tail end of February to March. So back then, now I've learned a lot about eDNA and DNA over the years. So back then, from what I understand, was you needed a follicle. That's what would hold the DNA, and or a medulla, which this hair lacks a medulla. A black bear habit, elk habit. Humans can have, most humans have a medulla, which if you think of a pencil, that would be the lead. Most humans have that. They got fragmented, or they can be missing it in some cases. So this, all the hair, whatever made the nest, left the hair there. That so that's obvious to us. We basically all we could get at that time was a visual, microscopic look at the hair to compare it to known animals, and we had it compared to every animal out there, and it didn't match anything. It was primate hair, and so. No DNA could be extracted at that time. It was older. Nowadays, they used to say, "Hey, you need that follicle at the end there, and you need to find it fresh," just like scat. Because scat, a lot of people think, and you can do a lot now with scat. But back then, as Meldrum will tell you, Dr. Meldrum, people would send him, scat or poop in bags and send it to him. Hey, can you look at this? And he's like, I can't really do anything with it because. He said, unless you have 2 big impressions and a fresh steaming pile, don't send it to me, because scat, what you're going to test, at least back then, I'm sure it's changed now, but back then there's a mucus once that scat is laid, and you actually test the mucus around that scat. We found scat in this area. I think one of my buddies still has it in his freezer. Not much you can do with it. But so we didn't have anything looked at back then other than visually. Because that's what we're told was all that we were capable of doing. Now, fast track into 2024, 2025. They don't actually need a follicle on a hair. They can do a lot of DNA work on hair or scat without that mucus. Again, you need to find the right lab, and you need to have money. Fortunately,
you need lots of money.
Oh yeah. Fortunately, Darby Orcutt, you guys may be familiar with him. He's doing he works at a North Carolina university, and he's gathered, and he'd be a great guest. He's gathered some academics, and it's university funded and funded outside of the university as well, where they're taking samples and vetting them, and whether it's hair or scat or whatever have you, dirt, eDNA. They're actually looking at something, compiling stuff, and I've heard some rumors, and I don't quote me, but they found some of the samples they've been sent, including some samples from some of our samples that weren't sent from us directly, but an outside source that had some of our hair samples. They've been sent over there, and they found some interesting things. And so, and it's free. It's free. You can send it there, and they're going to look at it and test it and stuff. So I'm very excited.
That is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's always wondering I got this. Where do I send it? Where do I send it? Well, look up Darby Orcutt. And off the top of my head, I know it's North Carolina, but I forget the university. But you can look them up on Facebook and whatnot, or probably just on the internet. And if you have some really solid samples that you're confident in, might be a good source to send it to. I always say, keep a sample for yourself and send us another sample to wherever you're sending it. I don't care if it's Darby Orcutt in North Carolina, or a veterinarian, or another lab in Australia or Germany or the US, Canada. Keep a sample for yourself. Don't give it all away, but there's options, and there's things becoming readily available that the future is bright for this subject matter.
All right. Well, I do have another question. When you found the hair and they said it was primate, did they say primate-like or contained primate? Similarities, or are they saying this was strictly primate?
So again, visually looking at it, it was a primate hair. There was no DNA work done on it, so they couldn't tell you, it's this or that. It visually looking at it, it did not match bear hair. Did not, it had no cut marks, no dye. Under a microscope, it had red pigmentation, and it lacked a medulla, which is, for a lot of us Bigfooters have been in this for a while, it's kind of the gold standard, because some of the hair that's unknown, that's been found around the country and outside of the country, like British Columbia, in Canada, it lacks a medulla. It does not match visually any known animal, but it has all the characteristics of a primate hair.
It's primate-like.
Yes,
okay.
primate-like. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. All right. That's the closest thing that you could.
Yes. Exactly.
Put it with. Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
That's what I was wondering, if they said it was strictly primate or it was close to. That's the closest thing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think they could say strictly because they would have to do some sort of eDNA on that, environmental DNA or DNA on the hair itself. And then, but then again, that's a whole nother conundrum because we have had, we did do, brought Dr. Meldrum out years ago and a certain lab in New York looked at the hair and they said, oh, it's human. It's, and so I came back and go, well, what percentage? Well, and that's something I actually don't really want to get into because I don't want to throw this individual under the bus because I would never work with him again or he doesn't work there anymore. But I don't think they did do their due diligence because, it's 100%, it's contaminated or we don't know. But that happens. That's happened multiple times over years and years where it comes back as human. Well, I expect it to come back as human. Don't give me the mitochondrial side of things. The mothers, tell me who the father is. Do the nuclear DNA on it and get down to the specifics. Is it 99.9% human? Then it's not human. 99.8% human? It's not human. That is something separate. Look at chimpanzees. Look at they're very closely on, especially on the nuclear side, closely related to us, but they're still different. And I expect Sasquatch to be very similar. But just off a niche, just off by whatever percentile, and that makes it Sasquatch, not human.
Wow.
Right.
Are there any places that stick out in this country that you're getting more hair samples from or scat samples from?
Honestly, nobody sends me scat. I have been sent hair. Most of the hair I get sent because I'm a layman. I'm not a scientist. I consider myself a citizen scientist. I do the best I can. And I have a microscope and all that. And I can vet a lot of hair that's up here in the Pacific Northwest pretty good. I have my conundrum sometimes, but I've gotten pretty good at identifying a lot of, especially ungulate hair, which is the most common or whatnot. I get sent hair and it's usually like elk or deer or cow or horse or something of that nature. I don't get sent a whole lot of scat, maybe 2 or 3 times over the years. And I look at it, I'm like, well, it looks like bear scat, or whatever have you. But no, I don't, there's not one spot in general or location or state or whatever that I see influx of stuff being sent or talked about. I mean, up here in Washington, I do get a lot of photos sent my way, especially around places like Mount Adams or usually it's around mountains and Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, you name it. I get a lot of stuff sent my way, and it may look interesting, but there's, sometimes there's no context or you just don't know it. And I'm not an expert in hair, and I give them avenues like Cindy Dosen, who works with the Olymp Project of Homini Enigma. She's up in British Columbia, and she's fantastic for looking at hair. She has so many samples of known animals, and then she has her suspect possible Sasquatch hair, the golden standard Laxamedulla, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. And there's a few labs that, and even your local veterinarian, sometimes they'll look at your stuff or certain labs. I always tell people, they're always looking inside the States. Australia has some of the best labs, and they're way more open to looking at stuff. And they actually have a lot of our animals cataloged almost better than sometimes some of our labs and universities out here in the United States. Australia, Germany, there's a lot of good places to send stuff. I always tell people, though, don't say, hey, I think I have Sasquatch hair. Just say, hey, I have this unknown hair. I don't know what it is. Can you tell me what it is? And if they come back at you and go, well, I don't know what that is, then maybe you got a starting point and maybe you have something of interest.
Right. At least you get started somewhere.
Yeah.
If they tell you that it's a known animal that, you see on the regular, at least you'd know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like I tell people all the time is, take that extra step, learn about hair or scat. And then, buy your microscope. Get really familiar how microscopes work and how hair looks under different light and what different animals' hair looks like. So that if you come across something that really stands out and is different, then you kind of vetted it yourself before you pass it on to the next person. Maybe you'll look at it and go, oh, that's a ungulate hair. That's a black-tailed deer or a white-tailed deer or a muley, or that's an elk hair, or that's, a mountain lion hair or a bear hair. These are all common animals that I think are by far in bigger number in the country than say Sasquatch, which I think are small in number, and chances of finding hair are pretty slim, but it can happen.
Right, right. So now you said that you haven't had the well, I should say the opportunity, or not the opportunity. I don't know what I'm looking for. The great excitement to have a visual on one of these that were close to you recently. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, I did have a visual in August of 2011, which really, up until that point, I was kind of like 50-50 about the Sasquatch thing, because all the work I'd done in California, solo stuff, I talked to a lot of witnesses, but I mean, up and down California, the Sierras, Yosemite, Southern California, I never came across tracks, hair, anything of interest, never saw anything, ran into tons of black bear, but I talked to a lot of witnesses back then. And I had that encounter, which solidified for me that Sasquatch was real. In the Nest area, I've had a lot of different experiences over the years. You know, you name it, rockstrom, tree knocks, blah blah blah. But never a visual. But Derek Randalls and his wife had a possible visual of something whipping a tree back and forth, a blonde individual. And as far as I know, we don't have any blonde black bear in this area, but this thing also would have to be about 7 feet tall based on what they saw above the brush. And this tree was whipping back and forth. They actually thought it was a heavy piece of machinery rocking this tree back and forth. And then they saw this thing walk away. Chris Spencer of the Inland Project has seen a possible Sasquatch in this area. But I've yet to see a Sasquatch in this area. I've just found, you know, impressions, tracks, hand impressions, the hair, and then my, you know, experiences both audibly, whether recorded or in person, that leans me towards that. Yeah, there's definitely something periodically going on in this area at certain times of the year. And so there has been a few. And then historically speaking, talking to people that live, you know, miles and miles and miles away, roadside crossings, their experiences, what they've seen. So there is a history of Sasquatch reports in this general vicinity that kind of adds to the possibility.
So you mentioned certain times of year. Are there, you know, like wintertime or fall that are you're more apt to see or witness or hear a Sasquatch up there?
Yeah, specifically up here, just talking about up here, I would say fall is a wonderful time for vocals. September, October, November for, you know, possible Sasquatch vocals. I love early spring, April, May. That's when the deer and elk are calving, and there seems to be influx of vocals then. You know, and we're very fortunate up in this area. We don't have any wolves or anything. We have black bear and mountain lion and all that stuff, but you know, when you hear a long howl in the middle of nowhere, and you know it's not a wolf, and you know it's not a coyote, it's pretty interesting. But so I would say fall, early spring, and in the beginning of winter seems to be the times of year that we get the most vocals. You know, when it comes to elevation and all that. I mean, right now, I expect, based on our data, that just like the elk, the Sasquatch are going to be at a lower elevation, being transitory like the elk and whatnot, at a lower elevation, because that's where all the food sources are right now. We still, you know, we have steelhead, salmon coming up these rivers. Things are sprouting. You get higher up the mountain, you got less food. You come down lower, there's a lot of food. That's where you're going to see the black bear. And so, again, correlation with, you know, I think Sasquatch is, you know, when it comes to food sources and weather, they're kind of following that pattern. Whether they're following elk and deer and all that, I had no idea. I assume possibly, but definitely that makes sense to me. I know where I'd be this time of year. I wouldn't be way up on the mountain. I'd be down at a lower elevation, down in the valleys, down in those areas where there's a plentiful amount of food. The snow is up on the high peaks, but you come down a little bit lower and everything's readily available. And easy to consume, and chase around, and hunt, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I always thought that. Now, the conservation group has now they're releasing elk back into our ecosystem here.
Yeah, I've been reading that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was making me wonder what's going to happen. Now, most of the Sasquatch reports that we're receiving in Missouri are in the Ozarks or in other places in the Mark Twain National Forest. But I'm on this other side, which is pretty flat, and a lot of it's used for farmland, and but I'm thinking with them releasing elk, we may have more sightings in this area. It is bringing in uh, animals that have kind of disappeared, such as the black bear and your bigger cats, and it's bringing them back into this area. So do you think that is going to bring them down here too? Because I mean, the wildlife is now starting to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I honestly have no idea. But like you stated there, Brandy, with ungulates and elk and that sort of species. I mean, that's prey. And so I would assume that's going to attract known predators, let alone Sasquatch. Even out of curiosity, it might attract them into some of those areas. And I mean, I would assume too, most of those elk that they're releasing are probably got collars on them. They're being tracked. And so that way they know if someone's hunting them or poaching them or predators get a hold of them, they keep track of the numbers. We see that, I mean, Washington, the Olympics has the largest population of Roosevelt elk in the world. They say the number's around 5,000, but I think it's a little bit bigger. They have very few elk tagged up here. And I have game cameras up there, and you'll usually see a call around an elk, and you're like, oh, well, they're monitoring this herd or this particular elk. But again, with that, on my game cameras, you do see an influx, even on the property we have up in the Olympics. I mean, there's been 2 elk taken down by a monster monster cat up there, and I found the carcass and whatnot. So the predators will follow suit. So if Sasquatch is semi-predatory or takes advantage of, elk or deer or whatever have you, I think that's going to I would assume that would attract them.
That would give us an uptick in sightings, I would think.
And that'd be an interesting study to monitor, with the elk, and if there's influx of Sasquatch reports in areas where the elk have been released and they're surviving and thriving. That'd be interesting. That'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I would think so, to see how the reports are coming through, or if it does pick up in the next couple of years, because I would be honestly excited to see it. I mean, we do have, I don't know how you feel about dogmen or anything like that. I mean, we have had some sightings and reports down in this area from them. The Mississippi River plays a big part in what's happening in our area with the wildlife and everything. But there's not a whole lot of Bigfoot, down here. I'm getting excited. I'm like, come on, I don't want to have to travel, hundreds of miles to go look for one. I'd rather just, be able to just travel a little bit.
Well, you never know. I mean, it takes a human and a Sasquatch to have a report. And so, I mean, people often ask me, like, where should I go? And I said, well, just because, they look at the BFRO and a lot of these databases that are out there for public consumption, and they go, oh, I got to go here. I'm like, well, I actually would go over here where there's no people. It doesn't mean there's no Sasquatch. It just means there's no reports because people aren't going there. But you have black bear, you have everything that would sustain a large animal. And so I like to look for areas where no one's going to. It doesn't mean there's no Sasquatch. It just means there's no people. And so,
which is perfect.
Yeah, and then again, it takes a person to actually report an encounter or experience, and that. I mean, it's become more readily available, easier to do nowadays. But I think there's still, I know for a fact there's a lot of people that will never talk about it, and they could be sitting on a gold mine. You just don't know because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go back there. They don't want the notoriety. They don't want the embarrassment. And so there's a lot of that going on in other areas. And so I like to seek out areas, so you may have Sasquatch in those areas, but nobody's reporting it or nobody's going to those areas. But, there's a lot of known animals in certain areas that shouldn't be there because we're told they're not there. Oh, there's no mountain lion here in West Virginia or whatever. There's no mountain lion in West Virginia or whatever. But they're there. I know people have sightings. They're not stupid. They know exactly what the frick they saw.
Mhm.
They're there, but they're not. And I'm sure a lot of the, fishing, fishing game, these other departments, they know they're there. They're not high in numbers, so they don't worry about it. Someone sees a sighting. Oh, you saw a coyote. You saw a house cat. You saw a bobcat. No, that's not what I saw. But for them to admit it, then there's a whole process they have to go through and admit it and lying. And so I think it's the same thing with Sasquatch too, in a lot of
And a lot of ridicule and backlash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say, the person's name, but yeah, we actually talked to an officer at one time and he did admit it.
Yeah.
He said that we should be careful out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you don't want to press them any further. You're just kind of like, okay, you're acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It's just kind of like, I'm on the right track, that other people are seeing these things in this area. And that's where, I'm in the right place. So,
yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to tell me everything. Just give me the smile, the wink, the side eye, whatever.
Yeah.
And just say, just be careful out there.
Yeah. I mean, that's enough info to tell you that there's something to it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I've talked to some though. Oh, there's nothing out here. There's nothing out here, and I'm like, sure, there's not.
Yeah. I ran into that many times over the years in multiple states. And what I've found is that you have whether they're park rangers or fish and wildlife, the newbies, the ones kind of fresh on the scene, they've been working out there for a year or two. They hear reports and stuff. They'll share them with you. Maybe they've seen something that they haven't. But as you go higher up, it's more hush hush because those people they want the credibility. They don't want the poking fun of. But I've had a few higher echelon, seasoned veterans in their fields that will speak to you privately. But, John Mindzinski, if you guys are aware of him, he's an absolutely amazing guy. I think he's spoken at the Ohio conference a few times. And he's such an amazing man's man, just a heck of a dude, one of the top experts on wild goats in the world. And he had an encounter as a wildlife biologist in Wyoming, and he was told, he was kind of fresh on the scene doing this thing. He was told to be quiet, and he stayed quiet for like 20 or 30 years. And it wasn't until he retired that he felt comfortable coming out and talking about his experiences and the stuff that happened to him, because he had a job, he had a career, and he was shunned and told to shut up and be quiet. You don't talk about that. And that's, I think, what happens to a lot of these individuals that work in the government, and that they know already. I can't talk about this. I can't share stuff. I'm going to get, a bunch of Bigfooters out here looking for Sasquatch, and then it's going to point back to me. And so I'll be quiet about it. So that it happens more times than not, guaranteed. And it's unfortunate because that's just the world we live in. But I always love it when they eventually come out of the Sasquatch closet, as I like to call it, and talk about that stuff and admit it, So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. I've never heard anybody to say the Sasquatch closet, but it's true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Under my circumstance and what I had experienced in my close-up encounter, I don't know if I would have said that out loud if I were not in this position that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
I was surrounded by people that would track Bigfoot. They were investigators, they were researchers, there was journalists. I don't think I would have said anything if it weren't, I was already covered up. There was no way of getting out of it. You know what I mean? There was no way of getting out of it.
Sure.
But I don't know. I mean, I sat there for, even the first week is like second guessing myself. Did I see this? Did I not see this? Am I crazy? I don't want people to think that I'm lying because I saw what I saw. You can't tell me anything different.
Yeah.
I know it. I know they exist. I saw it. So, but then probably about a weekend, and then after I've had to talk to everybody and do, reports and all of this other kind of stuff, then I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's fine. I am not alone out here, because nobody made me feel like, you're crazy, you're lying, you're just trying to get attention.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because Guy Edwards, the guy I was talking about that did this monthly symposium or speaking engagement down in Oregon for years, he doesn't do it anymore. But Guy Edwards, he used to run a blog and do this. It was called the Bigfoot Lunch Club, and he came up with the 7 steps to a hoaxer or something along those lines. So he laid out how a hoaxer runs through his business, and I always wanted to, and I've not done it, and I'm giving up my idea now, but I don't care. The 7 steps or 5 steps of a Bigfoot witness. There's a process you go through as a witness, and people react differently, but if you look at the broad spectrum here, the average people, they go through they have the experience. Did I see what I see? There's no way. Who do I tell? I don't tell anybody. There's a process there. And then some people shut up about it. Some people talk about it. Some people don't talk about it for years. Some people are afraid to go back to the woods. Some people, like myself, dive all in. Now they're real, so there's a different process there for everybody. And it's an amazing thing, depending on the person, I've talked to hunters. I had a guy years ago. I was doing a conference, Sasquatch Summit up in Ocean Shores, Washington. And this hunter, older guy, I don't know, 70, maybe 60, late 60s. And I'm encroaching on that age too. But anyways, he came up to me and he was so mad. He's like, "Oh, you didn't show anything. You didn't get any proof. There's no such thing. I've been hunting out here for 50 years, blah, blah, blah." And he just gave me the riot act. And I was like, well, look a little deeper. There's a lot being shared right now. And hey, let's talk some more. No. Well, 3 or 4 years later, that same guy, I didn't recognize him, but he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I have to apologize to you." And I said, "Apologize for what? I don't even know who this guy is." And he goes, "Oh, I was here 3 or 4 years ago, and I told you there was no such thing." And he said, "I was actually out this past October out hunting, and I saw a Sasquatch. I saw a bipedal hairy thing, and it scared the bejeebies out of me. And I thought I knew everything about the woods, and there was no such thing." And he had that encounter. And so that's just what I've noticed, when I hear people tell me, "I've been in the woods my whole life and I've done this," and I'm like, well, good for you. Awesome. So have I. Big deal. I don't think there's thousands of Sasquatch roaming the woods. You're going to see an elk, a deer, or whatever, your quarry before you see a Sasquatch, but maybe, just maybe you will. And this guy did, and it blew his mind. And he came back to apologize to me. And I talk to him periodically because he's got questions, and not that I can give him answers, but he's now interested in it, but he never wants to hunt again. So he knows these things. Yeah. He knows these things have been out there with him the whole time. He's never seen one.
Well, running around as kids, we'd be in the woods all the time and camping and I've never seen one. It took me almost my, whole existence here on earth to see one. Yeah. So, it's not like there's, like you said, it's not like there's the thousands and thousands out there running around. I think it's just, I think you have to be kind of lucky. You got to be kind of lucky.
Right place at the right time.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Because I feel like that if they are in the area, which I do believe they're in quite a lot of areas, but I believe if they're in the area, it's up to them if they want you to see them or not. They've built their whole existence on being stealthy, on being, their own natural camouflage. And I think that they just, if they want you to see them, they'll let you see them.
Yeah. I love that because, my early days before I got involved with groups and knew anybody who was anybody in California, I would, I thought, I'll just go out there and hike around and I'm going to see a Sasquatch, or I'll go up to these areas where there's been reports. I never saw anything. And, my encounter in 2011, I came to the realization I wasn't doing anything Bigfoot related. I was an average dude out doing average things. I was on a fishing trip, remote back fishing trip. And that shaped my whole mind frame. That if you look at the vast amount of sightings, researchers, investigators are not, I'm about collecting data. I don't expect to go out in the woods and see a Sasquatch. It's your hikers, your people driving on the roads, all that stuff that see Sasquatch. Average people doing everyday mundane things that have a Sasquatch sighting. And I think a lot of that is to do because people are very predictable. And so what I do nowadays is I try to be a little less predictable. I love off-trail hiking. I'll set up my camp spot and I hike off-trail and I make myself known in every aspect of the word, yelling, walking around, just being a really jerk in the woods, so to speak. And, I'm urinate over here. I'll do this and that. Hike all day and I come back to my camp. I want something to check me out of curiosity because I'm not going to go out in the woods. I mean, I'd be very lucky if I did go out in the woods and see a Sasquatch or find a Sasquatch. I may find a foot impression or whatever have you. Again, very rare, but maybe. But to see a Sasquatch, probably not going to happen. But if I can cover a lot of ground over multiple days, if there's a Sasquatch in an area and I'm being unpredictable, I'm camping not that it doesn't happen. A lot of people see sightings in known campgrounds, but I like to place myself in, well, there's not a camp spot there. This is weird. What is this white hairless ape doing? So I like to put myself in those situations and draw activity towards me rather than, get out there and try to see a Sasquatch. Nighttime's a different experience. I don't do a whole lot at night. I therm, but again, I'm trying to draw something to my camp so I can capture it on film, on audio. And that's just my approach. I know a lot of people have different approaches. I'm not saying mine's right, but that's what I do. And over the years, I've had a couple experiences that I think kind of keep pushing me in that direction.
I think that the coolest story that I'd heard was actually out of the area that I'd had my encounter, and they were talking about the family that was around there. They have scattered family members living in close proximity, on the next farm over or whatever. Anyway, so one of the family members had chickens, so they took the fresh eggs. They took the cartons we get from the store. They're flimsy, but you can still pick them up without, it breaking in half. So they took 2 of those cartons over to their brother's house, and they put what their chickens had laid in those because they said it's the best way to transport them, and they just left them on the porch because they weren't home, so they just left them on the porch. Well, the eggs disappeared, totally disappeared.
Wow.
Well, about a day later, one of those cartons appeared back on his own porch, and it had like 6 eggs in it that were intact. There was a couple that were broken, and then there was some missing, but that whole other carton was gone.
Yeah.
So and there was no teeth marks in this. There was nothing that would indicate that an animal without the opposable thumb picked that up. No way. No way. But it was funny how they kind of returned some, like, well, can you fill this back up again or something? I mean, it was kind of a cute little story.
Yeah.
And they said they had weird things happen like that all the time. Like something will be picked up at one family member's house and end up at another family member's house. Like it's just kind of like moving stuff around. I don't know. It was just fascinating to me.
Very,
and I love hearing those stories.
Yeah. Well, likewise. I've heard very similar stories over the years that are, where something's taken and brought back. And so when it's that case, you're looking at 2 things. I mean, in my opinion, you're looking at human or Sasquatch in a lot of scenarios. I don't know what else could do that. I mean, ravens can do a lot of cool stuff in crows, but they can't do that. Bears won't do that. And can't do that. Yeah, so you're left with things that make you go
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was very odd to happen, and I just thought, well, that is just amazing that they're kind of like, well, I'll take these and I'll leave you what I didn't break. So here's these, and I could just picture them like eating them like they're opening a box of chocolates and just popping them in their mouths. I could just see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Looking at the bottom to see what kind it is.
Yeah, it's like,
Easily.
oh, this looks good. Just pop it in, just like a little chocolate. But I mean, it was the stuff like that. I mean, I find them amazing, just amazing creatures. And with these stories that we're hearing, what they're doing out there, it's crazy. It's super wild for me to hear the stories. And then with you coming in and you're giving me the scientific side about their dwellings and how they're doing this and how they're doing that, that just, it kind of all brings them home that they're just out there living their own lives. They're doing their own thing.
Oh yeah. Masters of their environment. No doubt about it. I mean, I think that goes without saying, and just, I'm not big into habituation. I don't know if you can habituate a Sasquatch, but I think they get very familiar with people. And one of the things I've noticed over the years is like areas where, and I've done investigations and worked with witnesses that have moved into a house or a log cabin or some kind of semi-remote that's been vacant for years. And they don't know anything about Sasquatch, but start having activity there. And even ultimately seeing a Sasquatch on the property and it doesn't go away. They're like, oh, there's a human here in the abode. And then sort of that sort of behavior that you're describing, some of that stuff happens on this property. And before they see a Sasquatch, and a lot of times they're like, well, how did this door open? How did this happen? Why is my fence bent? All sorts of stuff. And so, I mean, they're experts at what they do, experts in the woods. We all like to claim that we're really good in the woods and we're, the best outdoorsmen and outdoors women and all this, but we have nothing on the Sasquatch. I mean, this is their livelihood. This is what they do day in and day out.
Absolutely.
And, so, I mean, we're on their terms, when it comes to the woods. It's not the other way around.
And I'm sure they've been doing this since long before we were around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, and I feel like they're evolving too, as we evolve, they're evolving.
Yeah.
So I find it all fascinating. Well, Krista's back. Hi, Krista.
Hey, Krista.
Hey, I'm on my phone.
I was going to say, it looks like she's on her phone, but I have taken up a lot of Shane's time. Now Krista's back. I'm going to be quiet. Let Krista ask her questions while we still have him.
It's all good. I missed a whole bunch of it. So I apologize, Shane. I was looking forward to this. I'm just mad at the world right now.
Well, I'm mad at you, Krista. I'm really mad at you right now.
It's usually me. It's usually me that I lose my internet. I live out in the middle of nowhere. So, my internet comes and goes, it's got a mind of its own, but Krista's usually pretty steady.
And usually when Krista calls, it's because, like you said, Brandy, that you're out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's kind of odd getting that part.
It's like the Brady Bunch right now. You just keep popping in and out,
Pretty soon Tex will show up.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like everybody is pretty, we're kind of like the mix and match podcasters. We have a whole group. We're called the Island of Misfit Toys. And everybody kind of pops in and pops out on certain days. So we're all interchangeable. So, we
interchangeable, but unreplaceable.
That's right.
There you go. Perfect.
That's right. Usually if the Batman signal goes out, somebody will respond.
Yep. Definitely.
Shane, we got a couple questions from Chad, if you don't mind here.
No, not at all.
I like Ike. Does the OP have any credible sightings in the Hump Tulips area? And did I say that name right?
You did. Actually, you nailed it. Hump Tulips.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive. Well done. There's a lot. When I moved up to Oregon and Washington, I mispronounced so many names. We have an area up here called Squim. It looks like it's spelled Sequim, SEQ, but it's Squim, and I never heard the end of that. But Hump Tulips, yes. In fact, 1985, Derek Randall's of the Olympic Project. That's where he had that general areas where he had his first sighting, which launched him in 1985 into Sasquatch research. He was out there with some friends in a remote area hiking around. They were setting up camp and had some boulders being thrown at them, and to the point where they decided to grab their stuff and hightail it out of there. And as Derek gets down onto this trail, he looks behind him and he saw Sasquatch come down off the trail and stare right at him. And so that's a pretty infamous story. It's been on a bunch of TV shows and all that. But the Hump Tulips area, the Duckabush, Dosey Wallops, Lake Cushman, that whole area is phenomenal area. And I live not too far away from there. I just don't make it out that direction very often. But the Hump Tulips, yeah. I mean, I'm just curious as to why that was asked. I'm wondering if that individual had something happen out there.
That I'm not sure. I know he lives down here by us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
In Missouri. That's
an odd name to throw out there, but it is. I won't say it's known for Sasquatch, but it is known for a lot. You know, that general area of the Olympics is amazing.
Right.
And to be completely honest, I had to look it up to make sure that he wasn't, playing a fast one on me, because he does.
Oh yeah, Hump Tulips. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like,
there's a lot of
hell's that?
insinuation there. So yeah.
How did Amy Creel asked? How did the town get its name?
I have no idea. Actually, I should look up why it's called Hump Tulips. And I maybe I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what you might find.
Yeah.
Next question, Paul. I can't do anything from the phone.
I'm still recovering from what was said in the chat over there. What's the most common vocals you've heard? Whoops, howls, etc.
Oh man. Honestly, I'm not in person. I've not heard a tremendous amount of vocals. I have heard some over the years. I was down in Western Washington and we had a really crazy night that night with crescendo after the most classic whoop. I mean, just whoop. In the middle, it's like 12 at night, and I'm standing there with a partner, and right behind us, 40, 50 yards was an amazing whoop. I've heard whoops over the years that I possibly attribute to Sasquatch. I've heard some long vocals. I think actually two things. One, whistles are something I've heard over the years at weird hours, and usually it's not just a whistle. Something when I'm out in the woods and I hear a specific type of whistle, and I've heard it a couple times over the years, nothing good's happened after. Trees have come down, dogs act weird. So when I hear a whistle, I'm waiting for more, and that usually is the case. And it's been a while, actually. It's been years since I've heard a good, recorded them, but not heard a whistle in person. One of the things I think I've heard in two different areas, one in southwestern Washington and up in the Olympics as well, is what we call sing-song. It's something we categorize as that, where it sounds like something almost like a female voice. They're not singing. It's just multi-toned. Just odd. And that's something we've labeled. David Ellis, Something Limp Project, and Chris Spencer have labeled. That's what they call it. And they're our audio gurus. And they put it on a spectrogram and visually look at it and compare it to known animals. That is something I've heard in person that when you hear it, it blows your mind because there's no animal out there that can do that I'm aware of. And I'm around all sorts of animals, barred owls, you name it,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. That sing-songy thing I've heard a few times, and it is, we got a little library of these sounds, not just from us, but from others around the country and other fellow researchers that research some of the similar areas. That sing-song stuff, as we label it, is profound. I mean, it is just amazing to me. I mean, we've recorded long howls, the 20 to 23 second, woo, it just goes on and on and on and on, and then has that undulation. If you look on a spectrogram, where it has this like it downward spiral, and then it picks up a little bit. Heard that in person, but that sing-songy stuff I've heard a number of times over the years in remote areas, and that always just like excites me. Like I said, I've heard the gamut, but honestly, vocals not don't hear them that often. It's just periodically. It's the audio that we leave out there for 2 or 3 months. We go collect it and vet it. Known animal, and then something for a couple of days at a time in different areas in that proximity will vocalize or knock or throw rocks at our recorders. That we get a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, quite frequently and periodically. But that's
Yeah.
what it's worth.
Question. You mentioned rocks, and here, I don't know, a month or so ago, Brandy and I were down in Falk, Arkansas area with, we went down there with Will Lunsford and his research partner, Stephen Hill. And Brandy actually kind of just tossed a rock. She didn't even throw it far. She just kind of tossed it. And wow, the sounds and the activity that we picked up on, I mean, that was all around us. It like triggered something. And she didn't even throw it at anything. She just literally tossed it. Have you guys had anything like that, done any experiments like that? And what was your outcome?
Yeah, I typically, when we've had rocks, and very rarely again, but when we have had rocks thrown at our camper in our direction, I learned a long time ago from an old Native American friend of mine. He said, never throw rocks back. And then David Ellison on the project said the same thing. And he's a really good, solid researcher guy. I have, and never had anything necessarily thrown back, but it was always the warning, don't do that. Don't throw it back. So I haven't, but you bring up rocks, and this is a good topic of discussion because, wood knocks, for example, up here in the Pacific Northwest, especially 9 months out of the year, if you hear a good wood knock, it could be a limb on a tree. Some of the individuals I work with say that a lot of those are mechanical, like it's a mouth pop or possibly a mouth pop or a clapping of hands. But my experience over the years, where I've had wood knocks close to camp, what I assume was wood knocks, I'd have a rock come in. In the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of down limbs and stuff, but they're always wet and soggy. So you would smack it and you would hear a splinter, or it would just break apart. If you hear multiple wood knocks from one area, I don't see how, unless it was coming from mechanically from a body doing it. But a rock and a rock hitting a tree, I think I'm of the opinion that most of your wood knocks are actually rock on wood or rock on rock, because a rock is, in a lot of cases, depending on the type of rock it is, it's hard to break. And you can do a lot more with a rock than you can with a wet limb. So you can smack a tree with that rock. You could throw a rock. And I've noticed over the years that a lot of the recordings I'm looking at, there is this rock essence to it, visually speaking and audibly hearing. I think a lot of our wood knocks are rock knocks, rock on a tree limb or rock on rock or something of that nature. That makes more sense to me, at least up here in the Pacific Northwest, where you if they hit a tree once, it's not going to make the same sound. They're soggy, they're wet. So that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
I will say a golf ball makes that same sound too when it hits a tree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah. Trust me, I'm the king of hitting golf balls in the trees.
Yeah.
I'm a wood knocker, a golf ball tree knocker.
Yeah, with golf balls. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
No, it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not really. You're right.
Well, if you were on my team, it'd be fine. Okay, it'd be fine.
All right.
I'm trying to hit that tree.
We'd be on the same team then.
So Ike said a buddy of mine had an experience out there. Someone investigated it, thought it was the OP. Does Bob from Washington ring a bell to you?
Bob Gimlin, he's been up to the OP many times. Bob, I know a lot of Bobs.
Be a pseudonym,
yeah.
There's a lot of Bobs out there in this world.
Yeah,
especially in this community, there's a lot of Bobs.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It's just a cool name.
Yeah, Bob Williams. Yeah, there's a lot of Bobs. So to rest assured, the OP was not in the Hump Tulips or that area whatsoever. I've hiked up that area, but it's not one of our main areas. So it's more of an area that you visit and you camp in. It's not an area not saying it wasn't another researcher or Yahoo out there doing something, but we were not in that area whenever that transpired. And we don't do yells or knocks. Honestly, if I go out for a couple of days or a weekend, there's nothing going on, then I'm like, oh, my last day, I got nothing to lose. Knock, yell, whatever, bring something in. But generally speaking, and for the OP as well, we do not go out there and do yells or knocks. If we do a yell, we always do a human yell, like, hey, yeah, just like someone's lost and you're yelling for them. We don't do any of that stuff. That's not our MO. It's not what we do. So, but people do that. I mean, and, so.
We've had good luck, honestly, just like sitting around a campfire, talking, laughing, having a good time. And I think they're curious, so they kind of come in, you know?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I called. There's a method. So, looking at reports over the years, and my good friend Barcatino, who's probably got some of the best thermal footage out there. It's on YouTube. He's got a channel and just an amazing researcher. He saw a Sasquatch up in Rainier, 2007 or 2008, which really launched him into this wholeheartedly. His thermal unit could not record at the time, but Cliff and Tom Yammer and those guys were on a campfire, and what he had done was, they're sitting around the campfire, they're playing music and stuff, and he left this campsite to go take a leak, and he went down this trail, takes a leak, comes back, grabs his thermal off his truck, and he starts therming around. Well, he sees a Sasquatch generally in the same spot where he had peed, and it's watching the campfire group. And that's a really cool story, and there's more to it. But fast forward to Justin Smeha days when Bart Catino was down in the Sierras investigating that, and he got 3 Sasquatch on therm down there in Sierras. Todd Hill, the Inland Project, happened to be down there at that time before I knew him, and they had a big campfire. The deer were acting weird and doing weird stuff, but what Bart Catino had done was he had this campfire, and he peeled away, left the campfire group, and staged himself up, and got 3 Sasquatch basically watching the campfire again. So I call this the Bart Catino method, where you have a focal point, music, people, whatever, and you one lone person leaves and stages up to film. I am on the opinion, again, based on this and many other reports similar to this, that Sasquatch cannot focus on multiple groups. They get focused and curious about one group, but they cannot keep track of multiple groups or an individual that leaves. And so I've had a few experiences over the years now, and I'm hoping to have a really good one down the road where I can do the same thing that Bart's done and get one on therm recorded, because I'm pretty sure I've seen him on through a therm before, non-recordable therm. But I call it the Bart Catino method, where you just take off. And I do believe, like you said, Krista, that Sasquatch, we're their entertainment, and they'll come check us out. And your average camper that's having a bonfire and stuff, they're so oblivious to what's around them. Usually people are drinking, partying, having a beer, playing music, enjoying the moment. We're so oblivious to what's around us, and the Sasquatch know that. They know just how far enough to stay back without being seen or noticeable, and they can make all the noise they want, and nobody's going to know. But to get one, I just love Bart's method, where he just takes he leaves the group and does his own thing, and watches the group and see many things watching the group. I think that's such a cool method.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've just, we've learned so much in these past few years of doing, going out into the woods. And like I said before, we've done ghosts for so many years, Brandy and I have, and, we don't get scared anymore. There's no adrenaline rush for me anymore with ghosts. Now when we go out to the woods now, that's a whole different ballgame now. That adrenaline rush is back. So right now I'm really enjoying that part of the paranormal,
Yeah. No, it's fun. Just being in the woods in general. It's just fun, and that I have a healthful fear of things, but I don't fear anything. It's just like, I've been bum rushed by black bear. I've seen everything, and I have a healthy respect for things, but I put me alone in the woods any night of the week, anywhere, I do in a heartbeat, because I just love it, and I'm always prepared too. So I don't worry about that stuff. My friends think, even some of my fellow researchers think I'm crazy, because they're like, "You're going to go where and do what?" But I enjoy it. I'm not boastful about it. I just enjoy it. And if you want to come along with me, then nothing's probably going to happen. But if something does, just have your wits about you.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I have a question. You may have answered it, and I apologize for not being on. But have you? As much as you go out in the woods, and have you ever seen any orbs or anything like that out there?
Me personally, no, never. The one time we were doing a OP public expedition, this would have been around 2016. We were way up in the Olympics, hiking around with a group, actually 2 groups. We had one group in front and then a group in back, about 15 minutes down the trail. And we get up to this high point, and someone saw something blue in the woods, and it looked, I've never seen an orb before, and we're looking at this thing, and I'm like, holy smokes, that looks like an orb that everybody talks about. You know, I mean, I'm seeing this blue light in the middle of the forest, and it's, well, I'm that guy that I don't want a story. I want to figure out what it is. So I end up hiking down 200 yards down, way down in there, and I'm looking around, I don't see anything. I look up, and here's this blue thing glowing up in the tree, and and I didn't know these were in the Olympics. It's a Firefox mushroom, a bioluminescent mushroom. I had no idea they were even in the Olympics. I never heard of them before. Firefox mushroom, and it was blue, and I could see it up there. So I took pictures and stuff, and I hiked all the way back up. Radio contact, yeah, it's a mushroom, and everybody was floored. I mean, because when I got back up there, it looked circular. It looked like an orb. But to date, I've never seen anything I can't explain as far as orbs. I know people see them. I don't discount that. I have an open mind, but I personally have never seen anything I can't can't say was I can't explain. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe that'll change. Who knows?
Yeah. You never know.
You never know. But I just, like I said, if I see a light or an orb or whatever, you know, like I said, I got charged by a sow, a female bear one year because we were seeing eyes in the woods, and they looked big, and I didn't think it was a bear at the time. Well, it ended up being a bear, and she had a little cub next to her, and she bum rushed me, came down the hill, and fortunately for me, she bum rushed me and peeled off to the right, and I was like, oh, okay, that was a bear. Back down the hill I go. Next day I go up there, and I never saw the cub, but I could hear it, and I thought, well, maybe it's a Sasquatch. Maybe there's two of them. No, it was a sow and her cub, and found their impressions the next day. But I'm not just like that, but a lot of the OPs, like we go the extra step to figure out what it is, and sometimes we do some stupid things, but I have to know. I have to know.
Yeah. And see, that's what we do. I totally appreciate that, what you guys do, try to debunk it, try to have a normal explanation for it than just jumping to Bigfoot or something like that. And, with Brandy and I being in the paranormal for so long, we do the same thing on the paranormal side of things. There are so many explainable things that people, they're hearing things or, seeing things. And there's so many reasonable explanations for it. And we do the same thing on the paranormal side. And I appreciate that, what you guys do.
Well, and I appreciate hearing that, because I think if you call yourself a researcher or investigator, even a real enthusiast, you got to go through those extra steps. You have to be skeptical. If you're screaming this first, then you're not. You have to rule out everything. Ox and razor, right? I mean, what is the most likely scenario? What's the most likely answer? And so if you come from that approach, when something unique, like really unique happens, or amazing happens, I mean, not only will people trust you, but also it betters your research, because you're not jumping at every snap in the woods as a Sasquatch, every howl or everything is Sasquatch or paranormal. You have to go through a vetting process, and honestly, again, most things aren't any of that. They're known stuff. And then, so by going through that process, when something happens and you have substance and you have something that's unexplainable, then you're onto something, and it's better for you, it's better for the public, and it's better for the research in general, no matter what you're researching.
Yeah. Yep. Sure. We have a recording that we're not really too sure what it is. And would you mind if I send that to you and take a listen?
Do, yeah.
Just see what you think. We're open. Be honest with me. If you think it's, local hoot owl, then tell me, please. Cause it's one though we can't really explain. And I've sent it to, Charlie Raymond, and I've sent it to Joe and Jesse Doyle, Hellbent Holler. And they both came back as they don't know what it is. So,
okay. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
A caveat to that though is this, and I get sent, and Chris Spencer and David Ellison Project gets sent a lot of audio. I will look at it, like listen to it, look at it. The caveat is this: I don't know. So, I'm in here in the western side of the country. I don't know every animal per se that's out in those areas. Obviously you got owls and all that stuff, but you have different species of stuff. So what I will do is visually look at it and see what it's closely comparable to or not comparable to, and like, you have something, or my opinions. Again, my opinion, but I get lots stuff sent to me, and I'm like, well, we don't have that type of owl out of here, but it sounds like an owl. or looks like an owl. We don't have hogs out here. I get sent hog stuff, and I've got pretty familiar with that. I had some guy send me some audio of gators, in Florida, and we don't have those out here. But I did enough research on it and looked at it visually and compared it and found out it was a gator. So, yeah. Anyways, that's I don't know every animal.
Yeah, we would definitely appreciate your input on that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents, but yeah, no, I love listening to audio and see, I am stumped sometimes, and sometimes I'm like, wow, that's really cool.
Right.
We actually recreated that noise. It was actually at a haunted location, and it came from the woods, outside, and I guess it was a month or so ago. We were back at that same location, ghost hunting outside. And we captured the same thing. Somebody else did. So it was just really interesting to me.
Hey, so well, that's interesting, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We're at the 1.5 hour mark, guys.
I know. Already.
And I'm sorry. I apologize once again, man. Seriously, like my internet, I did not mean to be rude and leave and all that good stuff. It was out of my control.
Krista, just be honest. You didn't want to talk to me, and then so you had dinner plans.
She was looking forward to it all week. She's like, we got Shane on. I'm like, I know, you told me. We got Shane on. Okay, Krista, you told me. We've got Shane on.
That's Krista. I'm just saying, Krista and I are traveling early tomorrow morning. She's told me that she had a lot to do. And her internet goes out.
Oh, wow.
Believe me.
She's already packed, ready to leave. Yeah, well done.
Not even close. Still got clothes in the dryer, guys.
I do too. And I got to get up at 4:30 to go to work. So I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be a good weekend.
Yeah. You guys going to have a blast. And I do, again, thank you, Paul, for jumping on, and Brandy and Krista for coming back. It's been a pleasure. It's been a fun discussion, and I've really enjoyed my time. And so thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to have you back down the road too, because you guys always have new things you're coming up with too. So for sure. And then we'll holler at you if we're in Seattle.
Oh yeah. Give me a holler, give me a call, give me a message, a text, and if you're up this way, be a fun time.
Yeah, all right. That'd be great. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in, and there will not be a Blondes and Booze show tomorrow night. As Brandy said, we're all going to be in Tennessee. So,
and we'll be in the car. So no.
Well, yeah. Well, Paul and I talked about maybe going live on both our channels tomorrow during our drive. So we may do that. Yeah. So just make sure your bell icons are on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Well, I'll probably be at work, but it'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm riding with Paul tomorrow. So Paul and I.
Well, see, there you go. I will. I've got my notification bell on, so just in case, so everybody out there in chat land and watching, just turn on your notification bell. You'll figure it out.
That's right. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in, and once again, thank you, Shane, and thank you, Paul, for filling in.
Yep. No problem.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.